Alexander Dugin believes that what we are witnessing now is an event of biblical scale. Do you think it's Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu replacing Ayatollahs in Iran? No. In his view, it's the Jews replacing one Messiah with another. Instead of the suffering Messiah ben Joseph, the victorious Messiah ben David is coming. Today Iran, tomorrow Russia. But before that, an Iranian missile will strike the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Dugin is convinced that until now the Jews fought using the capital of victimhood. They fought off enemy armies with the victims of the Holocaust. And now, suddenly, they've gone berserk and switched to F-35s. They stopped appealing to pity and started applying physical force instead. Now Jews are no longer pitied, they are either feared or hated. What does this analysis by Dugin say about Israel? Nothing. What does it say about Russia? Everything. Dugin has a genuine cult of sacrifice. Malicious tongues even claim that he sacrificed his own daughter to the war, to create moral capital. And about Israel, Dugin is fundamentally wrong. Why do you think prayers were restricted at Al-Aqsa? To avoid casualties. The same story with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. To organize the end of the world, and at the same time avoid unnecessary victims? Something clearly doesn't add up. The point is that in reality, Israel does the opposite. It avoids casualties. Why? Here's an old joke from Soviet times. A patriotism lesson in a Soviet school. The students are lined up. Ivanov, do you love your country? Yes. Will you die for it? Yes. Petrov? Same dialogue. And so on until the very last student, Rabinovich. Do you love your country? I do. Will you die for it? If I die too, then who will be left to love the country? How do you like that answer? Maybe that's why among all developed countries, Israel has the highest birth rate. But Dugin doesn't understand things like that. Not because he's stupid, but because he's not allowed to understand. For Russians, war is when millions of soldiers charge at full height into trenches under machine gun fire. You get it? Israelis can't do that, even if they wanted to. After a couple of days of such battles, there would be no one left to love the country. By the way, do you remember how Israelis tracked down Ali Khamenei and other Iranian leaders? Through traffic cameras. The same kinds of cameras are used in Russia, especially in Moscow. And you know what? Right now, even the local parliament there has started losing internet access. Many public toilets in central Moscow have been closed for technical reasons. The internet is gone because the safety of the leader requires sacrifices. Can Israel hack cameras in the Russian capital the same way it did in Tehran? Press Secretary Anna Ukalova said the following: "Our capabilities are quite serious, and none of those who wish us harm will be left aside." Again, the question is, who wishes us harm? I hope that Moscow does not wish harm to Israel at this moment. I want to believe that. When I read this in Russian, the meaning is obvious. She wants to believe it, but so far she can't. Russians instantly caught the hint. What did people hear in the end? That Anna Ukalova wants to eliminate Putin. And this is where it gets interesting. Because in the logic of Alexander Dugin, This really does sound like a threat. Not because anyone is actually planning anything, but because the idea itself exists. The very idea that Putin could be killed by a missile or a drone. That's what's dangerous. Imagine the desacralization of Russian power. In the USSR in the 1930s, a poem appeared. And Stalin dreams, while still alive, to see the lights of communism. The author was asked, "Are you implying that Stalin could die?" She said, "Stalin as a symbol is immortal, but Stalin as a living person can die." That was enough. She was expelled from the party. Because Stalin can do everything. Except one thing. He cannot die. Putin is the same as Stalin now. And now, death can reach him anywhere. From the bedroom to the toilet. Precise, technological. This is no longer a heroic sacrifice. It's a joke. You may find it funny, but for Dugin, this is a metaphysical problem. Tsars are not supposed to die like that, because in his system, sacrifice is the fuel of history. It cannot be ridiculous. A sacrifice must take a bullet to the chest, or blow himself up with a grenade. Blown up on a toilet? Losing your testicles because of a pager? That's not heroism. That's not Russian heroism. That's a non-Russian war. An unfair war. Dugin called for a different kind of war. An eschatological one. It's when we die, and they just fucking die like dogs. Because what's the point of a world without Russia? Dugin called for war with Ukraine and the collective West long before it became mainstream. That's why I believe him. He has instinct. In his view, today the world is held back from the end of times by two forces, two catacons. The lesser catacon is Iran. The greater catacon is Russia. What is their weakness? They fight honestly, in the sense that they are not allowed to strike political leadership, not allowed to strike generals, and so on. So who can they strike? Rank-and-file soldiers, civilians. Destroy energy infrastructure? Of course. That's why Russia will never strike Volodymyr Zelensky and his generals. Schools, kindergartens, residential buildings? That's allowed. That's why Iran will never strike Netanyahu and his generals. Trump? Completely untouchable. That's what it means to fight by the rules. You can't. But Israel can, and the U.S. can. From Yahya Sinwar to Ali Khamenei, leaders are eliminated, and sanctions are imposed. Do you know why Russia didn't impose sanctions on Israel? Not their method. They can't even impose sanctions on tiny Israel. As for the U.S., I won't even start. In such a situation, Russia will act like Iran. It will strike those who are less protected. And who will play the role of the UAE and Saudi Arabia for Russia? The plan is obvious. You just have to look at the map. First, they will attack Lithuania because it's convenient for tanks. No swamps, no mountains, flat terrain. Then Latvia and Estonia. In Ukraine, on the other hand, It's inconvenient for tanks. Drones are flying, excuse me. The Baltics don't have drones. Not yet. In a couple of years they will. And then it will be too late to attack. And Russia has so many tanks now that soon there will be nowhere to store them. That reminds me of a joke. A Russian man is asked, "What kind of transport do you use to travel abroad?" "We don't." "What if you have to?" "We don't have to." "And if you really have to?" "If we really, really have to, then with tanks." When I read Dugin's question, why can't we Russians kill Zelensky and all his generals using Israeli methods, I feel the answer is in the question itself. Because we are not like that. It's about moral superiority. If you fight honestly. So that guts wrap around tank tracks. No Israeli tricks. For Russians, victory is not the main thing. Participation is. Fair play. Better to lose, but in a Russian way. In the worst case, you can always drop a nuke, and then a draw is guaranteed. Dugin believes in building the third temple today, more than many Jews do. During the last war with Iran, he said this: "If I were Smotrich, the first thing I would do is blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now is the perfect time. And if that doesn't work, then with a nuclear bomb. On his own territory, no less." Do you think that's a polite way of giving advice? Irony? No. Dugin is just saying what he thinks. He would actually do it himself. He would make a sacred sacrifice. In the video, I'm coloring in Albrecht Dürer's The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.